I've been gone a while, so I'm gonna quick recap everything and then break down the oncoming fights. So for the past, I don't know, however many years, boxing is predicting pretty much a fixed fight or a fake fight or a lopsided matchup. It's either easy or it's a toss-up, right? So going back to wherever I think I left off, Eubank versus Ben, I picked Eubank to win. Eubank showed up to the building, I picked him to lose, but I didn't update my last update, which was very long ago. Eubank picked him to lose because it looked like, in my opinion, it looked like he was on Ozempic, right? So people on Ozempic, they got that little eye twitch. It's like a lazy eyes, both of them. They got really slow movements. They can't react, they can't think. That's what Eubank looked like. Nigel Benn didn't even bring the fire, right? All he did was just outbox him. And then, very boring. Also looked like a fix, in my opinion. Going to Paul versus Joshua, also a fix, in my opinion. People thought Joshua was going to knock him out in the first one or just 2 rounds. I actually picked the right round, 6. Why? Because Paul was going to run, and then he was going to gas out in the 4th. Then he was going to drop to a knee and quit in the 6th, which is exactly as I predicted as I watched it with a group of people before it happened, right? And then he ended up breaking his jaw, which most people photoshopped the crap out of it. You can't tell what's real or what's not anymore, right? And then on the undercard of that was women's fighting, which was terrible. I didn't watch it, but it was turned on. They were talking about making women's boxing into 12 3-round fights instead of 10 2-round fights. And as soon as that fight happened, it was just a joke. The commentary was just joking the whole time. I didn't watch it, but I was listening to the jokes and I was laughing, right? Someone asked me, how do you fix the sport? I say 10 10-second rounds for women's boxing, so it would just be over with, right? Just fight for 10 seconds or not fight at all. Mostly just get rid of it, in my opinion, right? Okay, Cruz Roach. I thought Cruz beat Roach fairly easy, something like 9-3, 8-4. Roach was taking too much damage. He didn't really adjust until way too late, until, Cruz kind of tired out. But I just saw Cruz put a beating on Roach. You can see it in Roach's face that he was taking a hell of a whooping, even though they skewed the numbers to make it look like Roach was winning. They were trying to hand Roach the victory so he could have the rematch with the guy that's on the run now, or whatever it is. I forget what his name is. Benavidez versus Yard. Shit show. Benavidez fought Yard at, I think, 175, so he drained Anthony Yard for no fucking reason. Because after the fight, Benavidez said that he was going to go up to cruiserweight to fight Zurdo Ramirez. So if he was to do that, he should have just fought Yard at 190. Right, so me trying to think back on the fight, I think Benavidez actually did pretty good. The way that he was missing some of the punches on purpose, in my opinion, to set up the other punches, right? But really none of it mattered because it was a drained Yard. He didn't have to drain him at all because he had announced, he had already knew beforehand that they were going up to cruiserweight. So that was a waste of time for Benavidez. Nothing, right? Nothing gained, basically. Then we're going to go to the oncoming fights or whatever it is. This one, someone always says, oh, this is going to happen. I say, I'll say it. I'll say it happened after they get into the ring, they fight, and then there's a clear winner or loser. Then I'll say that it happened. That one is Jenis versus Victor Ortiz, right? I just have it on this paper. Jenis versus Ortiz. I forget what the fuck their name is. Jenis doesn't fucking fight anybody. He's not going to fight anybody because he's got a glass chin, right? So And Ortiz, here's the issue with Ortiz. Ortiz wants to fight so bad that he's willing to put himself, in the word of the day, as an opponent. He thinks he can go in there and knock him out, even though, the whole production crew would be against him. He believes he's gonna be the guy to win a knockout in the last round after being down 12 rounds to 0 on the television scorecard, even if he was winning 8-4, right? Ortiz takes the position of the opponent, so he sues Golden Boy. Golden Boy has been a shit promoter for many, many years now. I've said that so many times. He's the worst one out of all of them. He's dissing Zuffa Boxing. I watched Zuffa Boxing too. It was a joke. It was a joke because the main event was like the same guy who fought Fernando Vargas, his son, right? Doesn't matter which one, they all fight sucky. They're all C-level fighters, right? They all fight the same. Talking about, I forget who this dude was. Big, slow, not a lot of power. Fighting a guy that was like 3 weight classes below. It was terrible, in my opinion. It was terrible, and that's what they had for the main event. So then we're going to talk about Garcia versus Barios. Mario Barios versus Garcia. Ryan Garcia, right? Okay, so here's the other one. This is one that is a 50-50 because we don't know how it's going to go. We really don't, right? So Mario Barrios is a guy who's known to have already taken a dive and has already gotten a fever of winning a fight against Pacquiao, which he lost, in my opinion. Now, I had called Barios, the number 1 welterweight many months ago, and people laughed. They said it was the guy in Georgia. The guy in Georgia, he fucking sucks. The black guy, what's his name? Leonard, something like that. Right, so I had picked Barios to be the number 1 at the same level as Jenis and whatever his name, Leonard, whatever his name is, right? So people laughed, but then Devin Haney goes up and beats, I don't know what his name is. He's already forgotten, right? He's already forgotten. Brian Norman, that's his name. Brian Norman. So I never had Brian Norman as number 1. A lot of people did. I don't know how. Because he fought Ja Nelson, Boca Chica. And he was clearly getting his ass whooped by a feather-fisted... We don't really know anything about John Nelson, right? So the word of opponent is still there. So John Nelson was an opponent, but he actually showed up to win instead of on the screen not there to win. He actually showed up to win, and they didn't give it to him, right? So they said some cut, whatever it was, as soon as Brian Norman was about to get knocked out. They stopped the fight, let Brian Norman survive. We never see John Nelson again, right? John Nelson says he beat Brian Leonard. He wants the rematch. Brian Leonard doesn't want to even fight him again. Brian Leonard fights Giovanni Santillan after 2 months of getting his ass whooped by John Nelson. Brian Leonard shows up 2 months. He's got like 15 pounds of muscle on him. Right? And just strength through the roof. Hint, hint. He looks like that for, 3 fights, where it looks like he just can't get hurt at all. He's a tank. He's just steamrolling these guys. Qualities that he had never really shown before that, right? Devin Haney puts him through drug testing, and then all of a sudden he's a bum again, right? He gets clipped with like the weakest punch ever, and he's just out on his feet and can't do shit after that. And that one, I actually predict. I didn't give a prediction, but I thought Devin Haney was going to win that one, 8-4. Why? Because Brian Norman gasses out after the 4th, with or without whatever it is that he found between John Nelson and Santillan. Okay? So, we're looking at the welterweight division with Brian Norman completely out of the picture now, right? Which I think I've told some people, I told you so, but I'm not sure. I don't remember, right? Said he's gonna lose to Haney. Okay, now Garcia versus Barios. Oh, I went through on a different tangent with a fight that I skipped. Barios versus Ryan Garcia. Fixed fight, in my opinion. So, here's how this fight would go if it was real. Okay, so... Alright, so... I'm getting stuck here. Alright, we're gonna do Garcia Barios if it was real and what's going to happen. So, if it was real... Garcia would try to land that left hook. He would land it on Barios. He would try to step back and he would get countered with the right hand left hook by Barios. He would go down. He would shell up. He would lose. And that's what happened basically almost the exact same way that Luke Campbell caught Ryan Garcia and the same way that Rolly Romero caught Ryan Garcia and the same way that Devin Haney caught Ryan Garcia, right? So before that, Devin Haney had never hurt anybody with any kind of left hand, but the only person he had hurt was Ryan Garcia, right? Ryan Garcia was out on his feet, he was wobbled, which should not have happened. Okay, so he's going to try to land a left hook on Barios. Barios just going to, he might eat it, he might not. He'll probably eat it and then throw the 1-2 counter, or the 2-3 counter. Ryan Garcia goes down, he shells up, he loses. If he tries to win, he gets knocked out. How it's going to go is Barios is going to probably take the left hand, he's going to jump in the other direction on the ground, right? So he's going to fall down, but it's going to be the opposite side of the force that impacted him, and it'll be shady as fuck. Going to Jenis versus Ortiz. Jenis is going to just... How it would actually go if it was a real fight, Ortiz would walk Jenis down, beat him up, it would be over within the 6th. Problem with another fight that I had skipped was Ortiz versus Erickson Lubin. Man, people are really fucking dumb, right? So, Erickson Lubin, he shows up, he's like 6'1". He towers over Ortiz, he's black. He says, I'm gonna win this fight. Suddenly, people are people are switching their picks. These are the so-called experts trying to tell you that this is a sleeper, that he's gonna beat Ortiz. And this was one that I didn't have time to make any videos. I've obviously not decided to spend my free time making videos, but this is one that I got mad at because it was just obviously the most obvious scam ever, where they were trying to tell you to pick, I just forgot his name, Lubin to win, even though reality was that Ortiz should have knocked him out in round 1, and he didn't. I don't remember what round he knocked him in. I think it was like the 4th round. Took him way too long, right? Took him way too long. He should have knocked him out with the first punch, because Lubin is clearly... He's taken too many beatings. He's clearly at that edge where he's very clearly CTE, in my opinion. Going back to Cruz Roach, they were trying to tell you to bet the whole house on Isaac Cruz, even though they knew they were going to rob Isaac Cruz, and I think they ended up giving him a draw. But that was some in-house shady betting stuff, in my opinion. Right? You had the broadcast trying to tell you to pick for Isaac Cruz in this yada yada yada, and then give him a draw, even though he had won so many rounds. It wasn't even close, in my opinion, based on damage, not CompuBox. We already know everything about CompuBox. Now we're going to go into Xander Zayas versus some guy. Some people said it's going to be a competitive one. He's an African beast, whatever. That some guy is just showing up for paycheck. He's an opponent. He might, give Zayas a little bit of work here and there. He's going to lose. Right? And Zayas is alright, but he gets caught too clean with a lot of these punches that are obviously hitting him on the chin, but he's a protected guy, right? So another guy, alright, so I'm looking at this piece of paper. Zayzhuan Mosley debuted last week. Zayzhuan, cousin of Shakur Stevens. right? The cousin. Mora, he goes up, he's stinking it up. Same garbage. No power, no speed. He's just big. He's got a little bit of reach to throw punches at the air and make people go ooh-ah, ooh-ah. More on the telecast says he's basically slow and weak, right? And he goes, well, he's tall, but his hands aren't that fast, and, you're not that strong. And then he goes, well, he has that power to keep you honest, right? But he's not even using the word keep honest correctly, because keep honest would mean that he has the power to stun you and knock him out. No, he clipped some dude with a punch. They didn't even show the replay, so no one knows what he got hit with. It probably was a trip, right? So then someone writes Sergio Mora a script and then feeds it into his earpiece, in my opinion, and Sergio Mora reads it out. He says, Zayzhuan Mosley is the same. He's Ray Ford with power, right? Ray Ford. Fucking nobody. They basically put so much money in Ray Ford. Made him fight so many opponents that he never even improved. He fought Nick Ball, and Nick Ball beat him up, right? Something like 10-2, if we're going to be honest here. Let me drink some water. Now, going to Saturday night's main event. Shakur Stevens versus Teofimo Lopez. This one is the most obvious fix ever. It had already been broken down about 2 years ago by Thunderdome, when Thunderdome showed a clip of Teofimo being interviewed or something by James Prince or something like that, right? Whatever it is. And he says, I won't fight your... whatever it is. He's taking a dive, basically. And all of the content that they've been trying to push out there, I saw one where he was talking about how Top Rank was building him to be an opponent for Shakur Stevens. Now, and then he goes, but I'm not going to be the opponent. And it's like, but you had already revealed that the only time you're going to take this fight is when it's like your last... when you're stuck against the wall between getting paid or not getting paid for a hard fight, right? That fight would be the Puerto Rican guy who had just lost because he got knocked down. He got up, they called it off, which was the beginning of the fight. Colton Smith, I think what his name, Colton Dalton, whatever his fucking name was, right? Fixed fight. That one was fixed to... to the extent that as soon as he knocked him out, they called it off, when that was probably the beginning of the fight, right? So, going into this one, did I say how it should go and how it shouldn't go for Ennis versus Ortiz? Ortiz walks down Ennis, beats him up, wins easy, right? 10-2. Now, going into Teofimo versus Shakur Stevens. Teofimo wins this one easy if it's a real fight. He wins it 8-3-1. And I'll explain. They fight toe-to-toe. Shakur gets hit with the first big punch, and he just basically cowers. He turns into a coward, and he just runs. The way he gets the draw, the one round that's a draw, is when he tries to attempt to actually try to beat Teofimo Lopez, realizes that he can't mentally push himself to do it for 7 rounds after he's already down 5, and then he quits, basically, just runs around, survives, and loses. We've already seen him lose a whole bunch of fights that way, which is why he's not a superstar. He's not even a star. He's a fucking nobody. He's got like 5 losses that were so obvious, in which he should have lost by disqualification, or the guy just flat out took a dive. There was a Mexican guy. Do I have that clip? I don't have that clip. So I was going to show the clip of... in the movie Raging Bull, where I think his name was like Bobby Fox versus the Raging Bull. And that fight in that scene looked almost exactly like, what's his name now? The guy who took the dive against Stevens, the last fight, right? Zepeda. Looked like Billy Fox versus Raging Bull, right? So, going into how it's going to turn out, Shakur's gonna just fucking Showcore. I have it written down here, Showcore. So, he's gonna go out. He's gonna dance around, pop that jab to the air, and just pretend like he's winning, and he's gonna win it 10-2. 10-2. They're gonna just make a joke, a laughing stock out of Teofimo Lopez. That's what's really gonna happen. Teofimo might get his nose a little busted up, right? It might swell. He clearly has some like bone scar tissue on the bridge of his nose, on his beak. And people are gonna say, oh, it's just gonna be like Nakatani or Kambosos, and then they're gonna insert. And some people actually thought that he lost to Lomachenko because yada yada yada. Right, they're gonna insert all that crap into this one, but if you actually look at those guys that actually took him to the point where people thought that they beat him, they went through hell, right? And so you're looking at a protected fighter like this guy with his teeth on the screen. He's a protected fighter. He knows he's protected. He's not going to try to go through hell and back. Clearly, Turkey is funding the shit out of him, right? And he's just not going to lose. He's just not going to lose for a very long time. It's just that simple. It's all his fights are fake. Yada, yada, yada. Plus, you know, I think that's all I have to say. After 22 minutes and many months of me being away, is that, you know, boxing is like trying to predict how the fix or how whatever it is going to go, right? Because, one, I had watched also Zuffa MMA on Paramount Plus, and Gaethje was fighting Paddy the Baddy Bimblett, and he clearly carried Paddy the Baddy Bimblett. Bimblett was out so many times that Gaethje could have finished him off in 4 out of those 5 rounds, and every time he hurt him, just carried him. Literally carried him. There was, I think, one time where he had hurt Bimblett, and he went down and said something into Bimblett's ear. Right, he was like clearly talking to Bimblett's ear. He was saying something, and I'm like, try to zoom in that audio, you know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, he clearly carried him, like, Bimblett. He's just not that dude, right? He's just not that dude. Cuts too much weight, and he can't fight in his own weight class. He's just one of those, but they want to promote him for Liverpool, basically. But I think I'm gonna just stop there, so thanks for listening.